Thank you. Thank you for the great introduction. It's great to be here at Slush Play. Very nice people to meet, discussions to have, and a lot of important topics to discuss. My title of this presentation is The Reality of Virtual Reality. Quite an ambitious title, if you may say, and I'll get to that point in a second. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I've been in technology for about 25 years. I've been working primarily in mobile, more recently in VR, and I've always been interested in technology that transform industries. So technology for its own sake is of certain interest, but the impact it has on society, on people, on how we live our lives, how we do our business, that's really what I care about. So the reality of virtual reality, what is it? How can we predict something in the future? In order to do so, let's look backwards. Let's look at one of the great philosophers, Greek philosophers. They do great things. They've written a lot of things that are more applicable today, maybe, than what it was when they were actually writing it back then. So Plato, he was one such philosopher. And he was searching for reality, not because reality was important in its own sake, because he thought reality was the gateway to the truth. And in many ways here today, we're trying to find the truth. We're trying to find the truth of a new and emerging industry and find our position in that industry. I come from a company called Beringer Finance. We're one of the sponsors here at the event. We're what we call an old new investment bank. We are a group of 60, 70 people working solely with technology. We have announced that we're merging with a Nordic investment bank called FinTech. That merger will be ready towards the end of the year if everything goes as planned. So it means that we will have a significant force in Europe and globally in the tech space. And who are we? We are a good collection of different people. And that diversity, I believe, is really our strength. We have investment bankers, we have VC people, we have entrepreneurs, and we have also company executives that know the operational part. And we look at different technology sectors, and I've mentioned some of them here. I'll get to some more afterwards. And the common theme of all these industry sectors is really that they are dramatically being transformed by new technology and the application of that new technology. And as always, business is not about companies or technologies or platforms. It's about people. So we've actually mapped our global network of key industry players. And we come to the number 50,000. I think that's quite impressive, actually. So where are we going? We would like to be the leading and largest tech-focused investment bank by 2020. And we have quite an ambitious plan in order to reach that target. And merging with FinTech is one out of many steps that you will see from us going forward. In this picture, you see a number of different technologies. On the top, you see some that are highlighted in yellow. And in many cases, these technologies aren't just transforming an industry sector in itself. They also interact and engage. And as you'll see, we can see retail, we can see EdTech, we can see financial services, in addition to the gaming and the media services entering VR. I thought that I would tell you 3 stories. And again, looking towards the future, I think it's always interesting to look back. And story number 1 is when I just had graduated college. I got my master's in computer science. Back then, I was focusing on AI, and let's say it was the first wave of AI, no doubt. So we were 2 students, quite ambitious. We knew the technology, we knew how to make services, and we wrote this job application because we really wanted to tackle and solve a real-world problem. And the letter was sent to the traffic authorities in Houston, Texas. That's where I lived at the time. And we told them that we would like to apply for a 3-month summer internship because we wanted to solve the Houston traffic problems. We got the job and realized quite quickly that this was going to be one of the largest failures that we had experienced so far in our life. And truly, it was. It was well paid. So learning point number 1 from that story is really never underestimate the complexity when you have a real-world problem to solve and you know the technology. The second story that I would like to tell happens in the 2002-2003 space. I'm based in Washington, D.C., and I'm running my second messaging startup. We were the first company in the US that delivered what was then called cross-carrier messaging services with a fee. So it meant, simply put, that if you're watching a television show, you could pick up your phone, you can send a message to the game show host, we would charge you $1 or 50 cents. So it was an engagement technology with a business model. And needless to say, and that's learning point number 2, when you have large distribution and an easy onboarding mechanism, and you through a powerful medium like TV was and still is, you ask for action, people act. Did we have enough capacity at our servers to handle when literally 500,000 people hit send on an SMS because they want to be part of a game show vote? Obviously we didn't. But over time we developed those systems. So that's learning point number 2. Call for action actually works. Anecdote number 3 and story number 3 is really happening today. And it doesn't have a learning point yet. Maybe 5 years from now I'll stand on this stage and I will come with a learning point. But we see the emergence of what I call the global digital ecosystems. They have a wide range of very compelling services. The capital within these ecosystems is not the money, but it's personal data. And they trade in personal data, and that's the asset. When you bolt on VR onto these global ecosystems, you get a very powerful mix. And when you bolt on artificial intelligence and machine learning to these global ecosystems, you get even a more powerful mix. So I'll just openly ask, who's looking after the security issues in these global ecosystems? Who would be looking after my personal interests? Will I be able to make a contractually binding agreement in a virtual reality environment in a not-too-distant future? And what will the litigation look like if we are not in agreement of that contract? So there are a number of, I would say, open issues in addition to the plain, I would say, focus on content, platform, and tools that we see in the VR industry today that needs to be resolved going forward. So what is VR? I'm preaching to the choir. You all know what VR is. I think these 2 quotes pretty much sums up what we think the potential of the industry is. It's early days. We know that we will go through the sort of enlightenment phase. There will be a challenge, have you heard, before lunch on the funding part of the next year. But coming out of this will be something which is sustainable, something that we can deliver services into, and something that the audience would want to interact with and be part of. We looked at some of the stats. Now, how large is this going to be by 2020? And I agree with the previous speaker, it's not very important if it's 120 or 80 or 150. The key takeaway is that this market is going to be huge. And we already see for 2016 the split between the investments in content and platform as indicated in the pie chart. We also see some key figures for 2016, which are quite impressive in my opinion. Looking forward, though, in 2020, we see a larger proliferation of VR headsets. We see a tipping point, I would say, between AR and VR, and in 2020, AR is probably going to be larger in terms of monetary value compared to VR, according to some analysts. We see also that there will be a shift towards Asia. Large audiences in Asia already have, in many ways, a lead in these types of services already today, if you just look closely. And we will see not 2 billion, but 6 billion smartphones on the market. And to many people, the smartphone and the associated gadgets you get with the smartphone will be the VR experience. It's not a necessity that everyone else moves on to the more advanced headsets and platforms. So VR is transforming the way we live, entertain, study, and work, and I think we all quite well understand what it means for gaming. I'll bring up some other perspectives in addition. With respect to entertainment, and not just passive entertainment, but real-time experiences. You can participate at a soccer game, for instance. You could be one of the players, for instance. In retail, I think it's going to revolutionize the whole shopping experience. Not just the price comparison paradigm that we see on the global sites today, which are quite good and are good algorithms giving you the best product, but they are, in my opinion, free from the, I would say, the experience. Part of the reason why people go to shopping malls and stores is not just to get the product. They're also looking for a good experience. And that component, which in many cases is lacking now, you can provide with VR. And then we have tourism. Not everyone can go to the sites. My youngest son, he was recently in South America going on the trail to Machu Picchu. And it was quite interesting because he told me 6 months before he left, we're starting to run out of time. And I said, why? Why are you running out of time? Well, we need to register. We need to get a certificate. And in order to walk that trail, he needed to have a proof that he had been approved that day or those 4 days that it took to be on the trail. Because the tourism board, they realized that if they just let everything loose, then the sites will be destroyed. You will have all kinds of rubbish laying around, and it's quite restricted. So already we see that some key tourism, I would say, sites and resources are restricted. What about the rest of the population that would like to go there? Well, they could do so in VR, and many people will. We also see in healthcare, to use that example first, you can use VR for training purposes. I used to work with a company some years ago that trained surgeons. And I don't know if you know, but it takes many years after a college degree is completed before you are a fully trained and experienced surgeon. If you can do this through simulators, also using VR, then you can get more efficiency out of your surgeons. We see it in education, we see it in media and documentaries being played as well. So what's happening with respect to the investments? We see a number of companies being founded year over year. And I think this graph, despite the hardships we see going forward, is going to continue. We see that the investments split between VR and AR shows us some interesting metrics. There are more companies now in the VR space than there is in the AR space. I think that will change. We've heard about what investors that are active in this space and what their, I would say, reasoning for investing is. And I think we've all seen the very, I would say, public announcement of the large companies being founded. Personally, I try to find the funding of the smaller companies, the ones that you don't hear about, because those may be more transformational than the larger players. We've also heard about what Facebook is doing and how they plan and what vision they have for 2026. And Facebook is, by all means, a very large and global ecosystem. So is Google. So is Alibaba. If we look at the graph that I lifted from DZNet, you see that VR is coming out of the bottom there, entering what's called the slope of enlightenment. It means that there will be meaningful products and services from VR in the not-too-distant future. So, what are the issues? If we take one step back, try to do the Plato look at this industry. Well, we need to go beyond platforms and tools and content. We need to tackle privacy concerns. I would like to know who gets access to my personal VR profile with all the data and all the history and why. We need to tackle security concern and technical challenges. We need to do the business challenges as well. We need to have good business models. And we need to be cognizant that all development is always done for the common good. But there will be things in VR that we don't like, that we don't personally like, that we might find offensive. Who's going to handle that? So what do we see? We see the emergence, in my opinion, of a perfect storm. There are a couple of conditions that we need to see fulfilled. We see that we need to have a general move towards simplicity, not complexity. We need to find open ecosystems, not closed platforms. There has to be, in my opinion, embedded payment structures and no one-offs, no projects to promote some hardware piece. There has to be in VR app purchasing and even subscriptions, as we heard. I think also the paradigm on co-creation is quite important. Right now, in many ways, we have a sender-receiver paradigm. Someone is directing or scripting an experience, and we are participating at different levels. As a VR user, I like to be part of that creation process. I want to be creative myself. And we see VR will be the first medium, and we'll see that monetization to fund VR will come from other mediums, from films, TV, and merchandising. So where are we heading? I'm a big fan of Ray Kurzweil. I hope all of you have read his book. I hope all of you are familiar with the concept of the accelerating returns, the law of accelerating returns. And it says, technological change so rapid and profound that it represents a rupture in the fabric of human history. And this is the reality, in my opinion, about virtual reality. So thank you. Thanks for letting me speak here at Slush Play. Great to meet all of you, and please meet my team here out in the lobby afterwards. Thank you.